"You're just the night guard," she said in the dark. "So tell me, are you here to protect the building, or to see how fast I fall without the lights?" Before we begin, tell us in the comments, have you ever been underestimated because of your position? Or received a late-night call that changed your life? And where are you watching from? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real emotional stories. Let's begin. Caleb Turner accepted the overnight security shift because desperation leaves little room for pride. At 35, he had mastered the art of stretching $1 and hiding exhaustion. By day, he delivered auto parts across the city. On weekends, he repaired appliances for cash. But this shift, 12 hours in a downtown corporate tower, paid double. Double meant Sophie's school trip wouldn't be cancelled. Double meant breathing room. He kissed his 7-year-old daughter on the forehead before leaving her with Mrs. Bennett next door. "I'll be back before pancakes," he whispered. Sophie grinned sleepily. "Don't fall asleep at work, Dad." Downtown was still alive when he arrived, traffic humming, skyscrapers glowing like they had their own heartbeat. The Hayes and Company Tower rose 40 floors into the night, all glass and silver steel, intimidating in its perfection. Inside, everything echoed. The marble lobby reflected the chandeliers above like frozen water. Caleb signed in, clipped on his temporary badge, and listened carefully to instructions. "You'll be alone," the building manager said. "One executive is working late on the 40th floor. Do not disturb her unless she calls. If she calls, you respond immediately." Her. Caleb nodded. He had learned long ago not to ask unnecessary questions. The night began quietly. Cameras showed empty hallways. Elevators rested. The city lights blinked beyond the windows like distant stars. At 11:13 p.m., the desk phone rang. "Security." A woman's voice answered, calm but sharp. 40th floor. "The printer is jammed." He took the service elevator up. Madison Hayes was younger than he expected. Early 30s, blonde hair pulled into a tight low knot, navy blazer still immaculate despite the hour. The office behind her was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. She barely looked at him. "It's been doing this all evening," she said, stepping aside. Caleb opened the printer panel, removed the torn paper, reset the tray. Simple. Efficient. "Anything else?" he asked. "That will be all." No smile. "No thanks." Back downstairs, he returned to the monitors. Midnight. 12:42 a.m. Another call. "It's too cold in here." He adjusted the thermostat. 1:18 a.m. There should be a blue file in archives. "I can't access it remotely." He retrieved it. Each time he returned upstairs, Madison seemed more restless. Not impatient, unsettled. Her fingers tapped the desk when she thought he wasn't looking. She kept glancing at the darkened windows behind her. By 2:07 a.m., the building felt different. Too quiet. Caleb had worked enough late shifts in enough broken buildings to recognize when silence wasn't normal. The hum of electricity through the walls seemed uneven. One of the monitors flickered for half a second before stabilizing. Then the lights went out. Not dimmed. Gone. The entire tower fell into complete darkness. Somewhere above, a sharp intake of breath echoed down the stairwell. And for the first time that night, Madison Hayes sounded less like a CEO, and more like someone who did not want to be alone. For a split second after the blackout, the entire tower felt like it had stopped breathing. Then emergency lights flickered on, faint red strips along the floor, dim enough to make the 40-story building feel like the inside of a sleeping machine. Caleb was already on his feet. He grabbed the flashlight from beneath the desk and headed toward the stairwell instead of the elevator. Elevators were useless without power, and dangerous if it returned suddenly. Before he reached the door, his radio crackled. "Security." Madison's voice was tighter now. No sharpness. No authority. Just controlled panic. I'm on my way, Caleb replied calmly. The stairwell door opened with a metallic groan. The air inside was colder. Sound carried differently, footsteps echoed, distant and hollow. Halfway up, he saw her silhouette descending carefully, one hand sliding along the railing, phone light shaking in her grip. You shouldn't be walking alone, he said. I don't like being trapped, she answered, too quickly. Her heel slipped on the metal edge. Caleb moved instinctively, catching her arm before she hit the steps. For a moment they stood too close, the beam of his flashlight cutting across her face. Without the perfect lighting of her office, she looked younger. Less armored. Thank you, she said quietly. He nodded and stepped back, giving her space. Backup generator should kick in automatically. If it didn't, we checked the basement. They began descending together. The emergency strips painted everything in red shadows. 40 floors felt much longer going down than up. Has this happened before? Caleb asked. No, she said. Then, after a pause, at least not like this. That hesitation caught his attention. On the 32nd floor landing, he noticed something strange. The security panel that monitored auxiliary power had been opened recently. The screws were loose. He didn't comment yet. In the basement, the generator room smelled faintly of oil and hot metal. Caleb knelt beside the control panel and ran the flashlight beam across it. The main breaker hadn't tripped. It had been switched off. Deliberately. He stood slowly. That's not a surge, he said. Someone shut it down manually. Madison's silence stretched thin. That's impossible, she said. Only executive access can. She stopped herself. Caleb turned the switch back on. The generator roared to life, vibrating through the concrete walls. Seconds later, lights surged faintly above them. Temporary power. Not full restoration. He didn't miss the way Madison's shoulders tightened. You said no one else was here, he said carefully. There isn't, she replied. Then, softer, there shouldn't be. They rode the service elevator halfway before it stalled again. Emergency power only. They returned to the stairwell. Someone's been pressuring the board, Madison said suddenly, voice echoing against concrete. Saying I'm inexperienced. Emotional. That I inherited something I can't handle. Caleb listened. I've been getting anonymous messages. Small system glitches. Files missing. Tonight was supposed to be a presentation draft for tomorrow morning. He understood then. This wasn't just a power outage. It was a setup. When they reached the 40th floor, the city lights were visible again beyond the glass, but Caleb noticed something else. One of the office windows was slightly open. 40 floors up. And on the polished floor near Madison's desk, a faint muddy footprint that didn't belong in a sealed executive office. Caleb's jaw tightened. The building hadn't gone dark by accident. And whoever did it wanted Madison alone in it. Caleb didn't speak right away. He crouched beside the faint muddy print near Madison's desk, angling the flashlight carefully so the beam wouldn't wash out the edges. The tread pattern was shallow but distinct, industrial, not dress shoes. Not hers. Does anyone else have direct access to this floor? He asked quietly. Madison stood still near the window, arms folded tightly across herself, not defensive, but steadying. Board members. IT director. Facilities manager. My father used to, she said. But he passed that authority to me. Caleb nodded, filing it away. He moved to the slightly open window. 40 floors above the street, wind slid through the narrow gap, carrying the distant hum of traffic. That shouldn't be open, Madison said. Does it lock automatically? Yes. He examined the latch. Scratched. Recently forced. The generator hummed unevenly through the walls, temporary power holding the building together like a patch on a cracked dam. This wasn't random, Caleb said. Someone wanted darkness. Wanted you unsettled. Madison gave a humorless breath. I already am. He looked at her then, not as a CEO framed by skyline glass, but as a woman standing in an office too large for comfort. Why stay tonight? He asked. She hesitated. Tomorrow morning I present a restructuring plan, she said. It removes 3 senior executives. People who've been here longer than I've been alive. Caleb understood motives when he heard them. You think one of them? I think someone wants me to look incompetent. If the building fails under my watch the night before a major decision, she didn't finish. Caleb's phone buzzed suddenly in his pocket. Unknown number. He declined it. A second later, Madison's desk phone, running on internal line, rang. They both froze. She stared at it like it might explode. Caleb stepped closer but didn't touch it. Answer on speaker. She did. Static filled the office first. Then a distorted voice. 40 floors is a long way to fall. The line cut. Madison's face drained of color. Caleb moved immediately, checking the hallway, scanning camera feeds from the wall monitor. One camera, stairwell east side, was offline. Someone's still in the building, he said. Her composure fractured for the first time. Security was your responsibility. His jaw tightened, not in anger, but in restraint. Tonight I'm temporary, he said evenly. Whoever did this knows the system better than I do. He paused, then added carefully. I've seen this before. She looked at him sharply. Seen what? Sabotage dressed up as coincidence. Years ago, at an auto manufacturing plant where he'd worked maintenance, someone had altered safety protocols to force management change. The fall guy had been the newest supervisor. Caleb. He'd never proven it. Never fought it. He'd just moved on. People who can't win clean don't stop, he said. They escalate. Madison's hands were trembling now, though she tried to hide it. What do we do? Caleb walked to her desk and unplugged her laptop from the network. First, we don't panic. Second, we don't separate. Third, we document everything. He snapped photos of the footprint. The window latch. The opened power panel downstairs. The generator's hum dipped suddenly. Then steadied. A warning. Caleb met Madison's eyes. Whoever this is, he said quietly, they're not finished. The generator's uneven hum rolled through the building like distant thunder. Caleb checked his watch. 3:17 a.m. If they wanted to scare you, the call was enough, he said. If they want something else, they'll try again. Madison straightened slowly, forcing control back into her voice. Tomorrow's presentation file is on the secure server. If the power cuts completely, the backup won't auto-sync. So this is about data, Caleb said. Not just fear. She nodded. He moved to the hallway and pulled up the internal security feed again. The east stairwell camera was still black. The rest flickered normally. Who handles IT? He asked. Darren Cole, she answered. He's been vocal about the restructuring. Caleb didn't react outwardly, but the name tightened something in his chest. Cole. Years ago, at the manufacturing plant, the operations consultant who'd quietly redirected blame after the sabotage had carried that same last name. Coincidence, maybe. The lights flickered. Then went out again. This time the emergency strips didn't return. Total darkness. Madison's breath hitched. Caleb switched on his flashlight instantly. Basement, he said. They're hitting the generator. They moved fast through the stairwell, footsteps echoing sharply now. Halfway down, Caleb stopped abruptly and pulled Madison back. A shadow shifted below them. Someone was there. The beam of his flashlight cut downward just as a figure bolted around the landing. "Hey!" Caleb shouted. He ran. The stairwell spiraled, disorienting in darkness. The figure moved quickly, too quickly for someone unfamiliar with the building. Caleb reached the basement door just as it slammed. Inside, metal clanged. He burst through. The generator panel was open again. A man in a maintenance jacket yanked cables free with hurried precision. "Step away," Caleb commanded. The man turned, face partially hidden by a cap. For a split second, their eyes locked. Recognition flickered. Not fully known, but not unfamiliar. The man shoved Caleb hard and sprinted toward the service exit. Caleb stumbled but regained balance. He didn't chase beyond the doorway. Outside was an underground parking structure, multiple exits, too many blind corners. Instead, he slammed the generator switch back into place and reconnected the loose cable. The engine roared alive once more. When he returned upstairs, Madison was pale but steady. "Did you see him?" she asked. "Yes." "Do you know him?" Caleb hesitated. "I've seen tactics like this before. Corporate restructuring. Quiet removal. Public embarrassment first." Madison's jaw tightened. "Darren." "Maybe," Caleb said carefully. "Or someone working for him." Her office lights returned slowly. Dawn was beginning to bruise the edge of the skyline outside. Madison looked at Caleb differently now, not as a temporary guard, not as staff, but as someone who had chosen to stand between her and collapse. "You could have left," she said quietly. "You're temporary." "I don't leave things half-fixed," he replied. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time he answered. Silence. Then a voice, low and controlled. "You should have kept your head down, Caleb." The line disconnected. Madison heard enough. "They know you," she said. Caleb's expression didn't change, but something old and buried had just resurfaced. Yes. They did. And this wasn't only about Madison anymore. The sky outside the glass walls turned from charcoal to pale blue. Dawn over the city always looked peaceful, like nothing dishonest could survive daylight. Caleb stood near the balcony doors, watching traffic begin to move 40 floors below. His phone still felt heavy in his hand. "You should have kept your head down, Caleb." He hadn't heard that tone in years. Madison broke the silence first. "Tell me." He didn't deflect this time. 5 years ago, I worked maintenance at an automotive plant, he said evenly. Someone manipulated safety controls the night before a board audit. Systems failed. I reported irregularities. Next day, I was blamed for overriding protocol. You were fired. He nodded. Later I found out a consulting advisor had been pushing for leadership replacement. My report got in the way. It was easier to make me incompetent than expose sabotage. Madison's eyes sharpened. Name. Darren Cole, Caleb said quietly. The office fell still. Madison turned toward her desk slowly. Darren joined Hayes and Company 18 months ago. My father trusted him. And now you're restructuring his department. She understood. The muddy footprint. The forced window. The generator switch manually cut. The staged chaos before her presentation. It wasn't about fear. It was leverage. Madison moved decisively now, the CEO reassembling herself. We don't wait for the board meeting. She opened her laptop, offline, and pulled security logs Caleb had photographed. The time stamps. The disabled stairwell camera. The generator override. Executive override access requires two-factor authentication, she said. Which means the attempt was logged. She made a call. Not to Darren. To the board chair. By 7:30 a.m., 3 board members were in the conference room. Caleb stood quietly near the back wall while Madison presented, not her restructuring plan first, but the sabotage evidence. Darren arrived last. He didn't expect daylight to be waiting. When confronted with time-stamped override attempts and surveillance gaps tied to his credentials, his composure cracked. Not dramatically, but enough. Corporate investigations move fast when reputation is on the line. By noon, Darren Cole was escorted out of the building he thought he controlled. Silence returned to the 40th floor, different this time. Not heavy. Earned. Madison stepped onto the balcony where Caleb stood again. "You were right," she said. "I've been wrong before," he replied. She studied him carefully. "Why didn't you fight harder back then?" He looked out over the city. "I had a newborn daughter and no savings. Fighting would have meant losing months. Sometimes survival wins over justice." Madison absorbed that. Then she said something unexpected. "I created the overnight shift." He glanced at her. "I've been afraid to stay alone in this building," she admitted. "After my father died, I worked late to prove I could handle everything. But when the lights go out," she exhaled softly. "I didn't want to be alone." Caleb didn't smile. He simply nodded. "Then don't be," he said. 3 days later, he received a formal offer. Not security. Administrative Operations Director, triple the pay, benefits, stability. "You fix problems," Madison told him. Without ego. Without agenda. He accepted, not because it rescued him, but because it respected him. 3 months later, Sophie Turner stood in Madison's office holding a hot chocolate almost as big as her hands. "Your building's not scary anymore," Sophie declared. Madison laughed, genuinely this time. "No," she said. "It isn't." That evening, as sunset poured gold across the skyline, Caleb and Madison stood side by side on the balcony. Not as CEO and guard. Not as rescuer and rescued. Just 2 people who had refused to let darkness decide the story. And for the first time in a long while, neither of them felt alone. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.